Welcome, everyone. Okay. So welcome to tonight's public engagement meeting. You'll see behind me that there's instructions on how to do the electronic voting. If you don't have an electronic device, I believe that there will be a paper ballot handed out. Is that correct? Yeah. So there will be a paper ballot handed out at the end with the questions on them, and you'll be able to submit those, so no worries if not. So for those at home, I believe that this will be on the screen. Is that correct? Yeah. So you can get prepared. You don't need an app. You just go to the website or text to the number there on the screen, and that will be at the end of tonight's meeting. So I'll just let some people file in tonight here. Okay, so I'm reading a quick statement here, and then we'll get on to the presentation. For those of you present this evening and for those watching via television, let me please explain that a public engagement meeting is an opportunity for information to be shared. This meeting allows council members to hear from members of the public on concerns or comments with regards to the 2016 budget. It should be noted that council members generally do not take questions or respond, and most questions should be addressed to the City Prince Rupert staff. During this meeting, issues are not formally adopted, but recommendations may be taken back for further discussions prior to the final adoption of the budget, which is scheduled to occur in April. Some key points to remember when asking your questions or making your comments are: it is very important to speak slowly when introducing yourself and speak directly into the microphone in a clear voice. Please try to keep your questions or comments brief, as other people require time to speak. Once you have completed your questions, please return to your seat. Remember, there will be no decisions made at this meeting or any requests or concerns on any requests or concerns you have made. Lastly, questions may require staff to review, report, and make recommendations to council at a later date. So how we'll do this is my apologies. Actually, we'll start with the presentation, and then we'll take questions from the public.
Thank you for attending or watching from home our first of two public consultations on the 2016 budget. Staff presented the 2016 municipal budget on February 22nd. We will be showing a snapshot of that presentation for the purpose of public engagement and feedback at this public consultation. Council will listen to the comments and questions from the public as a part of their deliberation of this year's budget bylaws. After the presentation, people are asked to step up to the microphone and either ask their question of staff or provide their comments. Following that engagement opportunity, we will be asking those viewing from home and here in the audience to participate and vote on two questions, which will help inform the council. However, before we start talking about the budget, we would like to show the viewers here and at home a short video to explain how property taxes are calculated.
Meet Susan. This year, she bought her first home in Tiny Town. Susan understands a bit about property taxes, but she still has some questions. Who sets the property tax rate? And how are the property tax rates calculated? The city's finance department calculates the property tax rates by creating an annual budget, which is subject to approval by City Council. Once total projected expenses are calculated, other revenues that the city receives, like provincial grants and fees from public services, are subtracted from those expenses. The remaining The property taxes you personally pay on your home or business are based on the assessed value of your property provided by the BC Assessment Office. Each year, the city recalculates the tax rate for each type of property: residential, commercial, and some form of industrial, in order to make sure that it doesn't collect more than what's needed to balance the budget. Here is an example of how changes to assessed values can impact the property taxes you pay. Let's say the city of Tiny Town only has 3 homes. and each home is assessed at $100,000. The total taxes needed to balance the town's budget is $600. That means that the tax rate must be set at $600 divided by the total values of all properties, which equals 0.002. That means each property owner pays $100,000 times 0.002, which equals $200 each. Each property pays their share of taxes based on their assessed value. So what if your assessed values have changed? Let's say the next year, the same 3 homes has changed, and one is now worth $150,000, one is still worth $100,000, and the last is now worth $80,000. Tiny Town still needs $600 to balance the budget. So this means the city will need to calculate a new tax rate to match the changed value. Again, the city will divide the $600 needed by the total value of all properties, which equals a new property tax rate of 0.0018. So this means the city will need to calculate a new tax rate to match the changed value. This means that the first property owner, whose value went up, will pay $270. The homeowner, whose value stays the same at $100,000, will pay $180. And the homeowner, whose assessed value declined, will pay $150. If you have any issues with the assessment of your property, you can contact BC Assessments at 1-866-825-8322. This is a simple explanation of how your property taxes are calculated each year.
We are pleased to announce that our budget is balanced for 2016. This is based on no increases to service levels and only performing health and safety related capital replacements. Since our last budget presentation, we have learned of a reduction in our expected expenditures that has enabled us to propose increasing the funding to the library in full. Given that this is a consultation meeting only, staff will be recommending the additional grant allocation as a part of the 5-year financial plan bylaw direction request to occur in April. Our city's infrastructure deficit has prompted the city to recommend setting the municipal mill rate to allocate funds to asset renewal reserves. We'd like to discuss what asset renewal reserves are. They are essentially savings set aside for future city infrastructure improvements. Over the past few years, the city has been using existing asset reserves, which was money saved in the past, in combination with grants to pay for capital improvements and upgrades. But these reserves are not unlimited, and we cannot rely on grants. We need to save for future capital replacement or sustain greater tax increases to service debt requirements when other sources of funding are not available. Capital renewal and replacements include some of the pictures shown: sidewalks, roads and bridges, equipment, and buildings. Implementing savings can help us fix our city assets. Now that we have explained why staff has made their recommendation, we'd like to discuss the impact to property owners. To calculate the impact to a property owner of the recommended mill rate, a property owner needs to compare the 2015 general property tax to the amount calculated for 2016. The 2015 general property tax can be found on the 2015 property tax notice as shown in the red circles. Viewers should note that we collect taxes on behalf of other jurisdictions, and their levies are included in the same property tax notice. These jurisdictions include the Ministry of Education for Schools, the Northwest Regional Hospital District, the Skeena Queen Charlotte Regional District, the British Columbia Assessment Authority, and the Municipal Finance Authority. Each of these jurisdictions sets their own rates and communicates it to the city for placement on the tax notice for collection and remittance to those agencies. This is the formula to calculate the general levy. Take 2016's assessed value divided by 1,000 times the 2016 mill rate. This is the municipal property tax for 2016. Compare this to the 2015 general property tax as found on the previous slide. This will inform you whether the taxes have gone up or down on your home. We have provided all of the proposed mill rates on the next slide for viewers to calculate the potential impact to them, whether it be their home or their business property. On the far right column are the proposed municipal rates for 2016. They are compared to the 2015 mill rates in yellow. The mill rate is only a multiplier of the assessed value to arrive at a dollar figure. It is not a reference to the closed pulp mill. We have provided the effect to a homeowner with an average assessed value in both 2015 and 2016. In 2015, a homeowner with an average assessed value of $229,000 paid $1,691 in municipal tax. In 2016, the average assessed value of a home is $251,000. Therefore, if a homeowner had an average assessed value home in 2015 and an average assessed value home in 2016, that homeowner could expect to pay, with the proposed residential mill rate, $1,727 in municipal tax. This is $36 more than 2015, or 10 cents more per day, which we have proposed to have moved into asset renewal reserves. This slide compares the projected daily cost for the average homeowner in 2016. For example, every day an average household will contribute $4.73 per day to access all municipal services, excluding utilities. This translates into $1.85 for all protective services, 57 cents for roads, 66 cents for parks and recreation, and 23 cents each for airport access and community services grants, to name a few. 77% of homeowners' assessments in 2016 are valued at $300,000 or less. Therefore, at $300,000 assessed value, a homeowner can expect to pay $5.66 per day for municipal services. Here is an incremental assessed value list of expected municipal tax paid at the 2015 actual rate and the proposed 2016 rate after incorporating the recommendation. If a property owner's value stayed the same between 2015 and 2016, due to the mill rate being less in 2016 than it was last year, the property owner could expect to pay less tax in 2016. Many home values did increase during the year. However, others stayed the same or decreased. This is why it is important to calculate the expected value of taxes individually to determine the impact to each property owner. It is not a simple statement that everyone's taxes may be going up. This is shown in the following slide. Under the proposed rate structure incorporating asset renewal, and that's the middle column, 1,774 households will see either no change or a reduction to their tax bill. 1,173 homes will see an increase between $0 and $100 compared to last year. 890 property owners will see an increase between $100 and $200, and 615 property owners will see an increase between $200 and $300. Compare this to the balanced budget rate structure on the right. If we don't put any money away towards future asset renewal, 2,081 households will see either no change or a decrease in their tax bill compared to last year. 1,152 homes will see an increase between $0 and $100. 876 will see an increase between $100 and $200, and 442 will see an increase between $200 and $300. Therefore, because assessed values based on BC Assessment Authority have decreased, increased, or stayed the same, regardless of which rate structure Council adopts, the impact to households will still be realized by either a reduction to taxes or an increase in taxes. The impact is that, either way, some households will still pay more taxes compared to last year because their assessed values went up. About 300 households will move from paying a little less than last year to paying a little more this year if Council decides to put money into asset renewal. We have created this visual for viewers to see where their tax dollars are expected to be spent in 2016. The largest allocations are to RCMP at 23%, fire at 16%, recreation at 12%, and roads and sidewalks at 11%. These four services make up 62% of services funded through taxation. There is no doubt that taxes in Prince Rupert are higher than our neighbors. We offer some services that other communities do not have, for example, airport access. However, there is a legislative reason why taxes are higher in Prince Rupert. In 2004, the province of British Columbia capped the major industrial mill rate for all municipalities with a qualifying import-export property. Therefore, the city can only charge capped rates on industry that is considered eligible. All of the city's major industrial operating activity qualifies for these capped rates. Unlike residential and business properties, industrial properties assessments decline. Therefore, a cap on a declining assessment results in diminishing tax revenues. This graph shows the impact to the City of Prince Rupert by rate-paying category from 2004, when the tax caps were introduced, through to 2015. You can see on the yellow line where new investment offers a spike of new taxation from major industry, but declines afterwards as assessed values decline. The red line is the residential tax revenue, and the green line is the business tax revenue. The residential burden has increased from 4.7 million to 6.7 million in 11 years. The business burden has increased from 3.2 million to 4.5 million. Major industrial tax revenue has declined from 4.5 million to 3 million. There are 2 new industries and an expansion of the coal terminal in this time frame. Staff and council have continued to educate the province on the impacts to our particular community of this provincial legislation. We are still hopeful our discussions will bring meaningful change to our circumstance. It is expected that changes to the proposed mill rates are likely, given it is tied to assessed values. BC Assessment will release the revised roll March 31st of this year, which will take into account any appeals to assessed value. Any reductions to assessed values may impact the proposed mill rates. The provincial government offers residents the homeowner grant and a tax deferral program. These programs are available to reduce property taxes required to be paid and to defer tax payments through a loan. Please contact City Hall for details of each program. Thank you for listening to our presentation. We can take questions now from the audience. If you do not have the opportunity to either ask a question or make a comment for council to hear today, we will have another public consultation opportunity next Monday, March 21st at 7 p.m. in council chambers located in City Hall.
Okay, so that's our presentation. So now what we'd like to do is call upon speakers to come to the microphone and talk to us about whatever's on your mind around our budget, things that you have concerns about, that type of concern. So, as a first come serve basis, come to the mic. Welcome.
Good evening, Council, City staff. I am Joe Zalvitro, the Chief Librarian of the Prince Rupert Library, and I just wanted to say thank you. It has been a difficult time, but it's a much more difficult time for the people sitting in the council's chairs than many of us. I want you to know the library has been here for over 100 years, and we look forward, not me personally, but for another 100 years. And on behalf of the library, the staff, the trustees, and our hundreds of supporters who have been quite active and busy, we want to let you know that the trustees understand, and we want to work forward with the council in helping make this a better community, both in our library and outside of it. And I want to thank you for, even at the times when it's difficult, to know that we can discuss matters respectfully and fruitfully. So, thank you.
Thank you very much. Next speaker, please.
Larry Golden. I hear the budget presentation, but I don't see any paperwork, nor did I see one the other time. I was told when I asked about that, well, it's the same as last year, look at last year's. I did seem to remember Joy Torkelson said that when we came to this meeting, we were to have a dollar value attached to the different items, but I didn't see anything. Is that just because it was online and I didn't look?
It's actually right at the front of the stage if you'd like to come pick it up.
Okay, other questions?
Good evening, Gina Garon. I am in favor of putting money aside for asset management. I do have a concern in regard to partly the sidewalks that were being reconstructed this year. I would like to know why they were done in the middle of winter and the extra expense for hoarding put up. So I have no problem with renewing things when we do them responsibly and in a reasonable time and manner when weather is not a factor. So those are kinds of things I'd like to know a little bit more about what you plan on doing for different types of asset management projects. And also was really unaware that any of your paperwork was up at the front, so I'm going to go grab some. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Garon. We can certainly have a Public Works update come forward and with a plan of what's being planned to happen throughout the rest of the year. I believe our Director of Public Works would be available to do that at future council meetings.
I'll also just quickly add, so with specifically around the sidewalks, so that's part of a 5-year plan to replace the sidewalks on 3rd Avenue. I'm not sure why it was done in the winter time. I can't speak to that specifically, but the reality is actually it's much more of a bigger plan that 3rd Avenue, as we all know, needs some TLC and needs a massive undertaking to renew that avenue. But the sidewalks in particular will take the most amount of time. We have accessibility issues on that street. A lot of the stones that are in the ground are uneven now, and so we've had a lot of complaints with that type of issue. So the plan here will be next 5 years those sidewalks will be replaced with the looking forward to the future of working towards the road, working towards facade improvements, those type of things, so that we can have a brand new downtown core over time. So that was the reason why that decision was made through our capital purchases program.
I brought my book.
Did you notice that those sidewalks are already broken? So you just put them down and they were broken within a week of being put down. But I'd like to ask about what about our major costs, which are the RCMP, the sewage treatment, etc. How are you going to deal with them?
Do you want to start, Ms.
I'm
Muppet?
sorry, did Mr. Golden, did you say how are you going to deal with them? We're actively working towards and working with the province with respect to the RCMP building. We, as everyone knows, we have received multiple letters that our RCMP building is unsatisfactory. And as far as the sewage treatment program, that is something that is a legislative requirement, and we are working with our engineers to go through the management planning of it. So, and that is not finalized yet. It hasn't been received by the province.
Okay, other questions? Welcome.
Hello there, my name is Devlin Fernandez, and I just want to echo the thank you of Joe in terms of restoring funding to the library, because it will allow us to maintain the service levels that we have had in the past year in 2015. And I would also like to share with you that in the last 2 months, January, February 2016 versus 2015, we have already seen an increase in the number of patrons, an increase in the number of materials that get circulated, in the number of books that get borrowed, and in the number of people that are coming in to use the library for various activities. And so it is really a very good value, and it'll allow us to continue delivering that to our growing and changing population. We are very excited and hopeful that we can work in partnership with the city around asset renewal, and we have a municipal library, and the building that it's in is probably in similar state to the RCMP building. So we look forward to working in partnership with you on how we can address those issues, as well as a 5-year funding agreement. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Next speaker, please. Okay, again, I'll call for another speaker. Okay, I'll call another time for a speaker. Okay, seeing no one coming forward, what we'll do is we'll move to the electronic vote. And what I will allow the opportunity is that after the electronic vote, if there's anybody else that still would like to say something, you can still feel free to do that after the vote. But we'll get started with that. So the instructions are behind me here. And I think, are we handing out the paper ballot now then? Oh, they're already out? Okay, great. So well, for those at home that are on their computer or on their phone watching live, I believe you're seeing the screen in front of you here. And so we'll start with the first question, and we'll wait for all the vote tallies to come in. So why don't we flip to the first question?
First, we're doing a test question.
Oh, test question, my apologies. So choose something on the screen as an answer, just to test out to ensure your vote's being tallied correctly. Is there a clear indication when the vote is tallied?
Yeah, it looks like I got 11 responses.
Okay, so you'll let me know then when it's, okay. Still some folks entering in their tallies. We'll get this done with the test questions so that we can get the answers in quicker with the live questions. I see some smiling faces in the audience. Seems like people are enjoying themselves. How are we looking with those tallies there? Couple more? Okay. So we can move to the next question? Is that 30 seconds? Okay, we'll move to the first question, and there's only yes or no answer. The city has an extremely large infrastructure deficit. Do you agree the city needs to make asset renewal a priority in this and future budgets?
Those in the audience, if you've answered the question,
Oh, yes, if you have a
there's
paper
some
ballot,
staff
just
walking
split
around
those.
to collect.
Many many analog folks still. Okay, just tallying up the votes, paper ballots here. Are you adding those to the electronic or you just manually? Okay. If everything's, what was the manual?
Okay, so manual one had 12 yes, 3 no.
12 yes, 3 no.
And so this one we had 16, electronic was 16 yes and 3 no.
And electronically 16 yes, 2 no. 28 yes, 5 no. Okay, great. So people definitely see it as a priority. So next would be, do you agree with the city's recommendation in the 2016 budget to set aside funds into asset renewal reserves? Okay.
Okay, online I have 18 yes and 4 no. Offline I have 14 yes and 2 no for a total of 32 yeses.
So 32 yes, 6 no. Okay. So majority of folks who believe we should be putting money away for asset renewal. So I just want to quickly comment that the budget that we have at the table here is really a status quo budget, just to keep the town maintained. But it's not a budget that's going to get us well ahead of the curve. And that is one of the challenges that we have as a city council, is that we really need to be bringing in extra revenue, new revenue into the community so that we can do some of, I guess you could say, the nice to haves. Right now, everything that's on our capital budget is essentially the public safety projects that we must do. For example, the water dam, happening in 2 phases. The first phase, which we were successful at getting a grant for, $4.4 million from both the federal and provincial governments, as well as transferred, I believe, what was the total from Legacy? Ms. Baumann?
2.2 million.
2.2 from Legacy. For the first phase, which is to essentially get a road up to the dam, as well as replace the water lines to the dam. Because currently, to get to the water dam, you have to take a boat that gets you to a truck that takes you to an ATV that takes you to a trail, and then you got to hike 2 kilometers to the dam to service it. And someone does that twice a week. And so we're in a position where I believe the total cost is nearly $13 million for that one particular project in our dam is 100 years old. And so one of the reasons why we established the legacy fund is to try to do asset replacements without burdening the taxpayer. If we were to do just taxes to replace just the dam, that would require a 130% tax increase just to do that. So as the CFO had mentioned, we can't necessarily rely on grants, and we can't just rely on the fact that we can just keep raising taxes to do these big projects. Other issues we have is a wastewater treatment plant that we must build by 2020. Otherwise, we are financially penalized each year until this happens. And this was legislation that was brought in through a federal level. And we are definitely trying to appeal on that issue. But the total cost so far estimated is around $150 million. Other issues we have is the RCMP building replacement, something we must do. It's actually the RCMP can build it themselves and then just send us a bill. And so we're in a position right now where on one hand we need extra revenue, on the other hand we don't want to be burdening the taxpayer for a 100-year-old town where all the assets need to be the process of upgrading at the moment. So the intention of legacy was if we made new money in the community, like for example we made the $18 million from our rezoning, giving an option agreement to WCC LNG for 2 years, that money then can go into some of those projects which would then not require 2 to 5% tax increases here and there to try to offset. So we're trying to find the way to balance so that our residents aren't the main burden, having to take the burden. And as Ms. Baumann had mentioned as well, we have this provincial tax cap, which is going to be a longer issue, which will require not just the City of Prince Rupert's diligence, but other municipalities. There's 11 municipalities that fall under this cap. And that really, unintended consequences for that is that we are losing significant revenue from revenue we should be collecting from those industries that are here located in the community. I just want to make sure that I'm very clear that this isn't a Port Authority issue, that this is a provincial legislation, so this is between us and the province of BC. And that's ultimately one of the main challenges this community has, and it's had that challenge since 2004. And now, lots of advocating on our residents' behalf. The province definitely can see that there's unintended consequence to this, and we are actively working on some sort of solution. However, I can assure you that it's going to take some time to really solve that particular issue. So we are starting to look at other ways we can look at our revenue situation. And one of the things that we're starting to look at is the Ridley Island tax sharing, which we brought up at our last council meeting. We transfer about 17% of the Ridley Island taxes to Port Edward, which allocates to about $700,000 a year. That's 7% of taxes we would not have to raise if we were able to collect it into the city itself. And so now we're having a discussion with the Port Ed Council around perhaps there's a way we can relook at this agreement and how it was formed back in 1980 when there was a mill and we had the fishing and forestry and things were good here, and before I was even born. And then now we're in a time when we have a tax cap, we have no mill, and the world has changed. And no agreement is forever. And so now it's time for us to really start to pursue the fact that City of Prince Rupert's really paying many bills in this area, airport, landfill, and at a regional district level, we don't have any other major municipalities paying in to the pool. So we're kind of on our own here, I guess you could say, on this little island of ours. And we need to start being creative and innovative on how we're going to bring in new revenue. So that's some of the situation we're in. However, we are pleased that at this juncture that the proposal on the table from staff is that we do a tax increase for asset renewal, and council will deliberate on that over our next meetings. But at this moment, if council weren't to take that recommendation, we would have a 0% tax increase this year, and luckily we were able to get all of the community groups the money that they needed. So we're doing our best as a new council to get on top of that issue, because at one point in time, we all have to take a look at it that you just can't infinitely keep raising taxes to support the community. At some time, we're going to have to make some major efforts to figure out how do we break that that Pandora's box, I guess you could say. And the previous councils before me have been struggling with this for the last 15 years as well, and it's been a really tough time for Prince Rupert. So we're hoping that new revenue begins to come in, new industrial development. We have container port expansion. There are lots of opportunities underway. Watson Island is undergoing the decommissioning, and we anticipate over the next few years that that can be an economic opportunity for the city as well. And so we're doing our absolute best every day to make sure that we can get the city's finances under control, make sure that we can get our assets renewed. And then in the future, what I would really like to see is that we can actually start doing some of the nice to haves, like renovating and repairing all of 3rd Avenue, or doing a seawall walkway and those types of things that we really could use in this community to improve the quality of life. However, when you have to choose between a $13 million dam and a seawall, unfortunately, the dam is what's going to come first at this juncture. So just to give you some perspective of some of the challenges that we're undertaking at the moment, however, I believe that this council is working very hard, the staff's working very hard, and I believe we will get there, and it will take some time. So if there's other people that would still like to come to the mic, I'll open that up for now. And if not, we will adjourn this public engagement. I'll make myself available for any one-on-one comments in the foyer afterwards. And then next week, council will discuss in detail the budget by line items, and based on the feedback we heard from the public, and we'll talk to the staff, ask questions. And that will be next Monday, 7 o'clock, and you're also welcome to come and speak at that time as well. So if there are any further questions, you can come to the mic now. Okay, seeing none, I will adjourn tonight's public engagement. Again, I'll make myself available at the foyer, and I'm sure some of the other councils will be out there as well if you'd like to talk to us one-on-one. Next Monday, we'll have a continuation of our public budget process, and hope to see you then. Thanks for coming, everyone.